Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. Merry Christmas also for 2019. I hope you all had a great holiday break. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 best and worst for 2019. So this could take a while, so let's do this, eh? Now my 5th worst film of the year, in my opinion, has to be The Lion King. Why? Look, I really love the animated films of the 90s, grew up watching them as well, but there was something about this specifically that I didn't like. It was the whole fact about the emotions of the characters in the film that you couldn't really see if they were like happy, sad, etc. It was kind of like a mixture of watching a David Attenborough Planet Earth doco mixed with like some musical numbers, and the one that really annoyed me was Scar's Be Prepared, which really didn't feel good at all. It didn't really like capture that whole moment of Scar being the bad guy. It looked kind of mangy to me as a bad guy as well. The whole Mufasa and Simba, when Mufasa dies, again, that whole sequence looked okay, but there wasn't the emotional impact and punch that the old one had nothing on the original animated one. So Lion King for me, disappointing, walked out of it and I was just like, nah, not for me. My 5th worst film of 2019. Now for the 5th best film of 2019. I'm not going to give away too much, but let me tell you this. It stars Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson. It's based around a lighthouse on an island in New England back in the 1990s. And it's just about these two guys there. It's filmed in black and white in this, not letterbox format, more of like a 4:3 or pan and scan type format where it kind of catches that glimpse. It feels like you're there. I remember watching it and it was like, you know, obviously the cinema's all dark and you're there immersed and you feel like you're there with these two guys. Not giving away too much about it, but you know, there's been some mixed reviews about this. I think it was a fantastic film. It really builds a lot of tension. It's not so much horror, it's more so just a real tense kind of driving kind of film that is driven by some great performances by those two. If you haven't seen it and you're into this kind of like art housey kind of horror / tension kind of film, then go for it. But hey, if you're into your horror with just, you know, slashes, then maybe stay away from it. But yeah, The Lighthouse definitely for me, number 5 on my list. Number 4, 4th worst film for me this year. Look, at the time when I saw it, I thought it was okay, but I'm gonna put Us in there. Yep, by Jordan Peele, the guy that made Get Out. I remember walking out of it and I was kind of like, yeah, okay, that was not too bad. But then after reviewing it, after watching it again, I'm like, nah, this just doesn't have a lot of it just doesn't have a lot of the skeleton of the story. You know, there was a lot of holes in it which didn't really make sense to me. I get the whole, if you haven't seen it, spoilers just so you know, but that whole thing about the real world and then what's happening in the bottom world or whatever you can say, I get how they're trying to link it, but again, not a big fan of Us. I felt that, you know, there's probably other films that could be in the worst. I haven't seen a lot of the ones that just came out like Cats, but I'm putting Us at number 4 mainly because there was this whole build-up of it that it's going to be something amazing and freaky, but in the end it was okay. But after watching it again, I'm just like, really? I gave this a 6 or 6.5 out of 10. Definitely deserves lower than that in my opinion. So Us is definitely my 4th worst film of 2019. And now for my 4th best film of 2019. This could be even up higher on the rankings, but I'll put it at number 4, Rocketman. Wow, I tell you what, you know, with all the success of Bohemian Rhapsody and Rami Malek, yeah, that was fantastic, you know, in its own kind of right, and I did put that in my top 5 for last year of best films. But Rocketman, what is it? You know, Taron Egerton playing Elton John, seeing the progression of, seeing like Elton John's life. It's kind of like a biopic, but what I really liked about it is that it had this kind of musical feel to it, where every time there was a song from Elton John's life, the characters kind of broke out in this kind of like musical dance kind of sequences, or just like these musical singing sequences, where it was a lot different to Bohemian Rhapsody. And yep, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say Rocketman, I actually enjoyed it more than Bohemian Rhapsody. That's a real controversial thing to say, oh, how can you put Rocketman in front of Bohemian Rhapsody? But you know, I love both Queen and Elton John, but I just think Taron Egerton, that's what, you know, Rami Malek did a great job in what I called a PG version of what Queen's story actually was. Elton John's story in Rocketman and the way it was portrayed by Taron Egerton was amazing, and you know, it'd be great if he got nominated for, you know, Best Actor for it, but he probably won't. But just that whole thing about to see his progression of like where he was and how his life became with all the drug abuse and alcohol abuse as well was fantastic. So I put it at number 4 for me, Rocketman. The third worst film for me for 2019. Well, look, It's Chapter 2. Could you get any more disappointing than this? Well, you can. Well, yeah, the other two that are going to come soon, but It's Chapter 2. The problem I had with it was that, yes, I understand, you know, the book as well was a bit of a, it was the second half of the book, or the second half when they're adults could have been a bit difficult for the directors and the writers to come up with, you know, some, you know, the way it was told, the way the story was told. But I found that the first half of the film was very, like, very fastly paced. A lot of, like, you know, we have to get through all these characters very quickly. There's flashbacks to the old one as well. Kind of felt like it was recapping on what we had seen in the first chapter as well. And in this one especially, the way too much use of CG, where it took me out of the film. I didn't get scared at all at any point. Maybe the opening sequence kind of, that was a bit creepy, is about it. And the last scene that everyone laughed at, you got to remember that even in the miniseries, the same kind of thing happened with that giant spider. It's in the novel, it's what Stephen King wrote. Yes, it's a bit out there. There was other things in the book that weren't in the film. They can't fit everything, but I just felt that the overuse of CG, the really weirdly paced kind of storytelling, where at times it's really fast and then it's like really slow to the point where it's just boring, kind of took it out for me. So yeah, walked out thinking, wow, that was boring. It Chapter 2, third worst film for me for 2019. Now for my third best film of 2019. Again, this one here, I'll tell you straight away, I'm gonna put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now at the time, and I remember my review, when I reviewed it, I was like, some bits do drag on. Now upon another viewing, I must say that, yes, some parts in the film in the middle do kind of drag on a bit, especially with DiCaprio, with his whole acting problems that he's have. I understand Tarantino with what he's trying to do with the narrative and that character development. But look, as it stands though, as a Tarantino film, it's still a great film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You know, like I said in my review earlier in the year, that if you didn't understand or know about the 60s and Hollywood and what was happening at the time with, you know, Manson and Tate and all that, and the Manson killings and all that, then you probably think, I don't get where this, especially when it gets to the end part, you probably think, I don't actually understand what's going on, what's the point of this? But that's where it gets interesting. You need some background info on the film, which some people didn't have, but if you did and you're a big film fan, this is right up your alley as well, because it shows you that kind of like golden age of cinema in America at that time. And obviously Brad Pitt, DiCaprio do a great job with a few cameos of Pacino in there as well. But yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I'm gonna put that at number 3 best for 2019, the third best. Now for the second worst film of 2019. Well, yeah, I'm again, big fan of this franchise, but when I saw this, I just facepalmed myself at the end of the film. Yeah, I'm talking about Rambo: Last Blood. Now, there's a lot of hate for this, and I could see why, but I think it's the whole thing about people jumping on board whenever something's bad. They tend to do that a lot. So, I haven't seen Cats, for example, but there's like this whole thing about how bad it is, yet the celebrities talking about how bad it is and they haven't even seen it, which is weird. I'll make up my own mind on that. But with Last Blood, after seeing the review saying how bad it was, I'm like, you know what? They probably just don't get Rambo on the action sequences, you know, that whole kind of like, they don't get it. I watched it and I understood what they were coming at. In my review, like I said earlier, a couple of months ago, or maybe a month ago, was that it felt like a bit of a mixture of Taken and Home Alone. It took away from what Rambo was, in a way, like the way, if this is going to be this, which it is, the last Rambo film, the way it ended didn't really do it for me either. And the whole storyline, the way it goes about it, it just felt really empty for me. The whole film felt empty, just felt like a generic action film. Some people did like it, but I'm putting it as the second worst film of 2019 is Rambo: Last Blood. Now the second best film of 2019, I'm going to put Scorsese. Well, he's up there with The Irishman. I just saw this, well, again, I reviewed it very recently, not that long ago, so you can check out my review on that as well. You know, I'm going to put it out there, second best film of 2019. Why? Because it finally took me back to the golden age of Scorsese with his long, you know, dolly shots and his panning and his slow zooms, and the great character development and the great cinematography that went with that, and of course the great acting by Pacino, De Niro, Keitel. There's some epic people and epic acting in this as well. The one little thing that took me out of it was the de-aging part and how the last act of the film didn't really do it for me. But again, it stands as the second best film for me for 2019 by far. Definitely have to go out and see this if you're a fan of Scorsese. If you're a fan of gangster films per se, yes as well. But if you think, oh, you're just going to watch it because it's kind of an action film, you'll be disappointed. But yeah, number 2 on my list, best film, The Irishman. And now for my worst film, number 1, worst film of 2019. Oh boy, another Stephen King, adaptation where we had the original back in the 80s, and I read the book as a kid as well, and I was pretty creeped out by it, but this just no. I'm talking about Pet Sematary, the remake. Total disgrace to Stephen King's brilliant novel. And I'm sorry, that whole twist they do in it is just rubbish. It is garbage. It was the worst film for me for 2019. Now, again, I'm going to mention it again. I haven't seen Cats and Hustlers and whatever, but if they're just as bad as this, then maybe I don't want to watch it. But I will. I'll have a look at them. But Pet Sematary is definitely the worst film of 2019. Why? Well, because one, this whole thing about jump scares all the time was just too many jump scares, one after the other, and this whole twist they do in the film, changing the novel and the original film as well, it just didn't do it for me. And John Lithgow was the only good part in it. Everything in this film just was a mess, in my opinion. It looked fake, especially the actual Pet Sematary part where it looked like they're on a set. What happened to the whole thing about actually being somewhere on location? No, this film just didn't do it for me. It was the worst film of 2019 in my opinion. But La Casette, I haven't seen the other films that everyone's talking about how bad they are. So, well, for me so far, number 1 worst film of 2019 was definitely Pet Sematary. Now for my best film of 2019. Well, there was a lot of controversy before this film even came out. A lot of articles written that it was dangerous and that it shouldn't come out. Yep, I'm talking about Todd Phillips's Joker. Yeah, I'm putting it up there at number 1. I was really pumped for it last year in my top 10 anticipated films for 2019, and I had a feeling that it would be good, but not this good. Yeah, I'm talking about Joker, how good it was to see the progression of Arthur Fleck, this guy, this normal kind of guy who's gone through a lot in his life, looks after his mum, and just the character development that goes from there and the way Todd Phillips goes about it, the cinematography reminiscent of like Scorsese films, the editing in it, the pacing, the soundtrack, the cinematography, everything in this film screamed brilliance. And yes, you could say, borrowed from King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, I get that, but Joaquin stole the show. He better get Best Actor for it. I'm putting it as a dark horse. It could get nominated for Best Picture and Best Director. Don't be surprised if it takes one of them, and I hope it does. I love The Irishman as well, but wouldn't it be great for something like this to get Best Picture? That would be pretty epic as well. And I think it is better. I think it is the best film of 2019. So I'm putting Joker as my number 1 film of 2019. Now, some honorable mentions of the top 5 best and worst. I could say, the best ones, there's ones that I've missed like Green Book, Parasite, Midsummer, Ari Aster. I did put Hereditary number 1 last year, but this one didn't really hit the mark for me. And some of the worst ones, again, that I haven't seen, but Hustlers, Cats, whatever. But for now, those are my honorable mentions for ones that could have been in there. And that's a wrap, guys, for my top 5 best and worst films for 2019. Please leave a like if you liked the video, leave a comment, let me know what you thought of my top 5s. And of course, if you haven't subscribed already and you want to keep up to date with my videos, please hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of Daska Discusses.